Thank you so much, sir and ma'am, for laying the foundation for what promises to be a purposeful and action-driven 2 days ahead. Now, we have a much-awaited leadership coaching session that promises to challenge assumptions and stir the educator in you. We're honored to welcome a true global voice in education, Mr. Slade. Let me take a moment to introduce the mind behind today's masterclass. Mr. Slade is a globally recognized education leader, speaker, author, and policymaker with over 25 years of experience across 5 countries and 4 continents. As the head of BTS Spark North America, he focuses on developing the next generation of educational leaders, those who lead not just with strategy, but with soul. He is a co-founding member of the UNESCO Chair on Global Health in Education and a contributor to the OECD's Future of Education 2030. He has led the global rollout of the whole child approach at ASCD, and today his voice resonates across international platforms, advocating for school climate, holistic learning, and student well-being. Get ready to rethink what leadership truly looks like. Raw, real, and yes, a little messy. Please join me in welcoming on stage Mr. Slade as he takes us into the world of embracing messy leadership. Mr. Slade, the stage is all yours.
Wonderful, wonderful, thank you. And do we have the microphone and also the clicker? Because I need both of those. First of all, I want to say namaste to everybody. Thank you for inviting me here, and thank you very much to Ravi and ScooNews. This is I was actually a hat tricker, a third person attending, because I attended as a speaker in 2017 and also 2018. So thank you for inviting me back. What I'm going to do today, a little bit loud, there we are. What we're going to do today is we're going to walk through what we believe is required of leadership in this century, or especially in this portion of the century. We're calling it messy leadership, and there are 2 reasons for that. One, because this period that we're in right now is messy, but also the word messy, as you'll find out in a couple more slides, stands for an acronym about what we can do and how we can actually train ourselves in these messy times. But rather than have me talk for most of this, we're going to try and make this interactive. And I apologize because you might be put to death by QR codes during this event, but you have a new QR code there. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to spend 5 minutes chatting with a partner about what makes school leadership messy. And I'm going to put a timer up there, which is counting down 5 minutes. If you can pay attention back to me in 5 minutes, that would be fantastic. If anybody finishes their discussion early, feel free to go onto that QR code and text in your responses. So 5 minutes of chatting with a partner. 2 more minutes of discussion. You'll probably work out as well that even though I'm living in the US, I'm actually from Australia originally, which also means that I may not be overly passionate about the current administration in the US. Last 60 seconds. You're a very quiet bunch because I was expecting I'd have some difficulty in bringing your attention back to the centre. But well done, everyone's paying attention. Can we flick over, can we move from the PowerPoint to the poll and show that just now? Well, that's not working very well. Okay. Can you show the web page? No. Yeah, if you can go onto Edge and show the Edge screen, that has the... And if it doesn't work, we can move on. Well, let's hear from some people as we're waiting. What's some of the... what makes school leadership messy?
Parental engagement.
Parental engagement. What makes school leadership messy?
Sometimes the board having the policies, that also matters a lot.
Okay. Interactions with the board.
I think sometimes we make things messy because of 2 main reasons. We talk more and listen less, number 1. And number 2, I think we react instead of responding.
What's nice about that comment, when we'll delve into it later, is that sometimes it's the idea that we make leadership messy ourselves. Anybody else?
I guess wearing too many hats.
And you're probably wearing more hats now than we used to wear even 10 years ago or definitely 20 years ago. Anything else?
School is a very dynamic system, a very dynamic leadership it comes. You are not questioned for what you did. It is you are questioned because something else happened from somewhere else. Somebody else did something for which you are accountable.
It's true, you're getting asked to do more and more as school leaders. You're required to solve a lot of societal or community issues. You're doing a lot more things than we used to do.
I think poor delegation of responsibilities and lack of communication.
Put your hand up just now. We didn't see our results, but I'll get them to you and show them. Put your hand up if you believe that school leadership is more difficult today than it used to be 5 or 10 years ago. All right, almost everybody. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to turn our clocks back and go back 10 or 20 or 30 years and relieve ourselves of some of these issues or some of these responsibilities. This was the last time we did this, and you may see some similarities in what you were mentioning. Staff morale, wellness, budget constraints. deficit, closing of school buildings, mental health, micromanaging, legal concerns, shrinking budget, underfunding, happiness, staff well-being. This is something that's happening not only in the US or in India, but we do these kind of talks all over the place, and there is this growing level of uncertainty and stress. So the question becomes, because we're entering this time when it's becoming a little bit more crazy, a little bit more uncertain, the question becomes, how do we respond to this messiness? If we can't change society or community or the policies, then how should we be reacting to this? And the answer is that we basically need to learn from past experiences. This is an article that we wrote back in 2021 during the COVID pandemic. And even though the COVID pandemic was devastating and changed a lot of things that we were doing, and millions lost their lives, there are things in the way that people actually responded during that time that we can actually learn and use in these times. Before the pandemic, strong leaders were often expected to focus their leadership on process, accountability. It was a very controlled, traditional way of leading. There was a rhythm to how they led. There was a cadence. And then during COVID, we saw a lot of leaders act or react differently. Some, and for no fault of their own, tried to protect their school and their staff and tried to take all the burden on themselves. They tried to wait sometimes until they understood things better before they reacted. But we also saw some who lent in, who expressed vulnerability, who said, "I don't know, what do you think?" Who were not that superhero leader that we all imagine that can fight off anything, but instead they were a more human style of leader. It was this more human style of leader that we actually found, I wouldn't say thrived, but did better during the pandemic. This was an article that we put out this year, leading again in uncertainty, because we're again entering this time where things are changing and things are changeable. Now, it's not a global pandemic that we're confronted with, but it is the global rise of AI affecting our schools and our profession. It's the climate change, it's policies, it's budget. Rather than us trying to be the ones that solve everything and be certain of solving everything, we actually need to start to understand what decisions we can make to actually prepare ourselves better for this uncertainty. How many people have heard of the word or the acronym VUCA, V-U-C-A? Okay, about half. It actually came from the US military in the, I think it was the 90s. It stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. It was picked up in the early 2000s by the business community, and it's being used nowadays by policymakers and planners all over the globe to describe the world that we are in right now. We are in a VUCA world. Things are volatile, things are uncertain, things are complex, things are ambiguous, which means there's not a simple answer to any of it. The problem is that we're likely to be in this kind of changeable world for the foreseeable future. Here's some examples of what I'm talking about. This is headlines in papers from the US. They've not formally dismantled the Department of Education, but they've informally done it by taking away its funding. They've basically put $2 billion of school funding on hold, dependent on policies around diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's made the life of the educator in the US very uncertain. It's also had ripple effects into India. You've got students who were thinking of going to university and colleges in the US now reconsidering. You have many students who are there feeling unsure, uncertain. You also have your own budget constraints in India, and you're still battling the obsession with exams and traditional learning. But guess what? That's not the only change that we're being presented with. These are headlines from the US around artificial intelligence. Everyone is cheating their way through college. New York City public schools banned ChatGPT for 6 months and then realised we can't do it. You can't ban it. The genie's out of the bottle. Whether you like it or not, ChatGPT AI is here. Artificial intelligence isn't ruining education, it's exposing what's already broken. India's reaction, and actually Asia's reaction to AI, has been a little bit more positive. OpenAI launching an academy in India. India can reinvent education with AI. To a certain extent, the pandemic pushed education into the future and made us rethink some of the ways that we were actually delivering education and for what purpose. The potential of AI to do the same is huge. AI should be making us have discussions about why do we have an education system, what do we want it to do. I'm no expert in AI. I know a little bit more about leadership and transformational change. Suffice to say that we are in the middle of change and we need to get used to change. We talked a minute ago about how the role had changed in the last couple of decades. The role has changed even more probably the last couple of years. But our leadership style typically has remained the same. We are still trying to lead with this aura of certainty, even though we're in the middle of an era of uncertainty. Anybody recognise where this picture's from? It was 5-6 years ago. Yep. It was a ship off the coast of Italy. I think it was Sardinia or Sicily, where the captain basically took his eyes off the navigation, thought he knew where it was heading, and the boat ran aground. I also believe that the captain was one of the first off the ship, which I don't believe is meant to happen. But he had an aura of certainty even though he was entering into waters which had changed. This is how we used to be before 2025, maybe even before 2020. Basically, you would move from uncertainty to certainty before you made decisions. This is how we believe that you need to change your mindset from this year onwards. That you cannot wait until you're certain about something before you make a decision. Otherwise, things are changing so quickly, otherwise you'll be waiting forever because they'll never actually finish, or you'll never get to a point where you know 100% this is what I should do. We as leaders need to get more comfortable in being uncertain. We as leaders need to be more comfortable in not having all the answers ourselves and asking others. Okay, this is where this acronym comes in, because the acronym MESSY, we believe, is a stepping stones or a process for you to become more agile in your leadership, for you to become more of that human style of leader, for you to become a leader who is more based around relationships and empathy and understanding, and less around I have the answer for everything. And as you can see, they don't work in a sequence, but they each stand for something. The M is around making meaning. The E is emotional connection. The two S's are sensing the future, seizing momentum, leaning in. And the last one, it's a bit of a cheat because it's not really a Y, but it's your presence, your role in this. What we're going to do today, we're going to touch on, so you get an idea, a little bit about the making meaning, a little bit about the emotional connection, and if we have time, your presence. Because I personally think that your presence is the fulcrum, it's the lever that makes this work. Okay, making meaning. How can I create a shared purpose and bring others along with me? What is your purpose of education? We each have a personal purpose of education. We each have a reason why we got into the profession. Do others in your school know it and share it? And how do you know that they know? Okay, I'm going to give you 5 more minutes. Chat with a partner. What's your purpose of education? There's no QR code with this one, you're just chatting. And if you need to get up and find someone to chat with, please go ahead. 2 more minutes. One more minute. Okay, pause there. I'm not going to ask you what your purpose of education is, but if anybody wants to speak up about how they know if other people in the school know, I'm happy to hear that. Any brave souls? So the question is, how do you know that other people know your purpose of education?
I think to be a good leader, there must be great clarity in you first having a vision. Having said that, I think the bigger challenge is to get everyone to see your vision and understand your vision. If you cannot let that perforate to your team to see your vision, I don't think any leader is going to be successful in imparting the education that he envisages to. I'm very confident that my team knows about my vision because we discuss it the whole time. Our goal is to see a happy school, for example. Our goal is to see that we build good human beings, and we stress on that at every meet that we have, every incident that happens that is not in line with those 2 words I used and a few more words. We discuss it and we learn how to navigate better.
Wonderful. So it's discussing, it's communicating, it's making people aware verbally, but it's also discussing what those values and visions are during every meeting, and that can become a way of actually making decisions. Does this fit into, our philosophy or not? There was someone's hand up over here.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. I believe there are 2 very basic words which define education, that is empowering students and growth of students. So if I have to talk about what is my vision, that one be the first one, empowering students. And how my team knows that that's my vision and that I want out of my students is because of the policies, is because of the activities we make them do inside the classrooms, when they are in the campus. We empower them. We make them learn through practical aspects. It's lead by example. So I believe that's my vision, and it's very well traveling across the team. Thank you.
I think as a parent, I'm saying this. What's the fundamental, purpose of a school? Is it to make students learn? I probably don't think so. It's probably to get the students to think. That's it.
I think that's what empowering students is exactly what my point was. To make them think first. Obviously, learning will follow. I guess that's how it is. Thank you.
And it goes back to our original comment, which is not the syllabus, but making students curious. What's come up when we ask these questions about how do you know if somebody else knows about what the vision is, it comes down to something or two basic things. One is you're telling people, you're communicating, you're using your words. You're not assuming that everybody has read the mission statement. You're not assuming that everybody has read the policies. You're not leaving the mission statement over there in the shelf somewhere. You're actually talking about it. Maybe you're even asking them, why did you become a teacher? Why did you get into education? Have those conversations. And the second thing is you're showing by example. You're leading and actually putting things into practice that you believe in and that fit that philosophy. We talk a lot about the me, the us, and the it whenever we're looking at something which needs changing or needs transformation. The me is straightforward. It's me. It's you, individual. It's the leader. The us is your team, the people that you collaborate with on a daily basis, the people you interact with. And the it is the thing that you're trying to change. Now, in this case, we're talking about purpose of education, but it could be something that you're implementing, it could be a project, it could be anything. We want you to think about these three being in concert with each other, that one affects the other. If you put too much emphasis on one, let's say the it's actually going to take away some emphasis from another. And this might be the me. If you put too much emphasis on one, if it's the us and making sure that people feel welcomed and part of the group, which is what you want and needed, you're actually going to start to take away a little bit from one of the others. This is almost like a pie chart. Guess which one of these, the me, the us, and the it, is normally ignored in most schools? Hands up if you think me. Hands up if you think us. Hands up if you think it. Okay, most were around the us. Ironically, the one that gets ignored the most is the me. The one that gets ignored the most is the leader actually taking control and saying what they stand for. The leader actually taking responsibility for driving something that needs to be driven. Too often, the leader relies on the process, the it, or relies on something being implemented, or relies on the others to do something. Maybe it's because we're servant leaders. When you're a leader in education, you typically are doing things for somebody else. You are handing off things. You're giving things away. When we're talking about something as fundamental as the mission, the values, the purpose of education as you see it and as your school sees it, I want you to focus enough attention, not all the attention, but enough attention on yourself and making sure that you are playing the role you need to play. For example, if you allow the it or allow the us too much energy, too much input without your input, It means that everybody's individual purpose of education or their focus might be rising to the surface. There's no uniformity. In order to drive something which is meaningful, you need to take control of it. You need to be vocal. You need to make sure that you're leading by example and putting things into process. It seems counterintuitive, but in order to get more unanimity, the leader actually needs to stand up and be vocal. In the book, Embracing Messy Leadership, we also have these uncommon senses, things that you don't automatically assume. It's more empowering for your team if you share leadership, purpose, and practice with them. Don't assume that they know it. Don't assume that they have the same vision as you. Have these discussions. If there's something which is fundamental to your school, make sure you vocalize it. Okay, on to the E, emotional connection. How can I build trust? I'm going to put 3 questions up here for 5 minutes, and you can feel free to chat to a partner about any of them. A, where you are from and what you do. B, the chances of India winning. Sorry, I wrote this before the last test. Maybe it should be tying the test series versus England. Or C, your concerns or confidence about your school this year and next year. Okay, 5 minutes. Any of those questions? Three more minutes. 2 more minutes. One more minute. Okay, and quiet. Let me go back to the last slide for a second. How many people began with A? Put your hand up. How many people began with A? Oh. Why did you start with A?
Hi, my name is Jonathan Rego, and I'm here representing Manchester City Football Club in India. I should give credit to the lady next to me. I think she started with A because she saw me sitting alone on the table, and she said, "Let me ask this gentleman what I do." But it did turn out to be a short but very meaningful conversation on understanding different mindsets of the approach to education in different parts of India. So, thank you.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. You start with A when you're getting to know somebody, when you're introducing yourself to somebody. Who began with B? Anybody? And I'm going to ask you the same question. Why did you start with B?
Because I'm following the match today. It's just begun. And I know India cannot win. They can at the most draw the series. So I was wondering why this question.
So your love of cricket forced you to B. All right, that makes sense as well. Did anybody start with C?
So we were talking about a new phenomena which has come up in our country, which is called a dummy school. It's a school which is not a school. And we are worried if it will be alive next year or not. It is very much alive and kicking this year.
And do you know each other? Or you just launch straight into C? You sort of do. Okay, okay. All right, there are reasons why we ask different questions or talk about different topics. When you're meeting someone, you're getting to know them, you're breaking the ice. Once you know them after a while, you start to ask about interests, things that are happening. When you know them very well and you're building trust and you're building that relationship, then you start to go down into those deeper discussions. We call this the iceberg model of relationships. It's not these questions, obviously, only, but these are examples. That first level are social questions. And where everybody, especially educators, are great at those social questions, finding out people, breaking the ice, making networks, understanding who we're talking with. Now, it's not quite business, but then again, I think cricket in India sort of overlaps into business. But you start talking about things which are key to you as a person. C is an example about what lies underneath the surface of that iceberg. That's where you start to build trust. You start to build trust when you start to talk about things which are important to you. The purpose of education, how your school is going to do this year, your concerns, your worries, your hopes and fears. How many times do you as a leader talk to your teachers or talk to your colleagues about things that might be in that C category? Because typically we might talk about the social, the business, but we would rarely go down to that C. Harking back to that study about that human style of leader, they were leaders who went down to the C. They said, you know what, during the pandemic, I'm a little bit worried. I'm a little bit unsure. I don't have the answer. By going down into that level of discussion, you start to build trust and build relationships. So in your conversations, we're great at A, we're probably very good at B. In your conversations, try to see if you can go down to C, developing trust. Don't stay at the surface level. Again, it seems like a paradox, but actually showing vulnerability will build relationships, will enhance your leadership. People think, I've got to have this armor and I cannot show any faults or damage. Especially in the times that we're entering into, you need to be able to express vulnerability, uncertainty, being even unsure of things. What it actually did in that study was, rather than have everybody follow the leader single file, walking in one direction to try and solve the COVID pandemic, which nobody had the answer to, by expressing vulnerability, it actually allowed others to express vulnerability, therefore made them feel safer, made them feel more understood. It also allowed them to come in with suggestions. So all of a sudden, the leader now has a group of 20 or 30 people who are coming in with ideas and suggestions. Okay, the why. What kind of leader is most effective today? I think this is key because I think everything else rests on your mindset of what an effective leader is. I have seen so many schools where you get a very progressive, student-centered teacher who then gets moved up into leadership, and rather than staying that progressive, student-centered, holistic teacher or leader or person, they think, oh, I need to behave like a traditional leader. I need to have all the answers. I cannot show emotion. I need to be decisive. From what we have found out, that's not correct. We believe that that superhero, know-it-all, you cannot harm me kind of leader is obsolete, if it ever was appropriate. Thank you. And instead, what we're finding is that the leaders who are becoming most effective, especially now in this period of change, are human-centric, relationship builders, curious, authentic, they're realists. So if there's one thing that you take away from this little talk, it's change your attitude or change your mindset, which we all have still to a certain extent, about what kind of leader is most effective. Realist. We all fall into mind traps. We all fall into ways of thinking that actually, even though we're trying to build our team or become a better leader, actually impacts the way that we lead. Very often, these fall into the mindsets of the judge or the pessimist. We're trying to get to the realist. We can describe these people in 6 different ways. The pleaser, somebody who's just doing things to please others. The critic or doubter, who's always second-guessing themselves, doubting themselves. They're actually their own worst critic. The prover, that even though you've done 4 or 5 things really well, is going to think, oh, I need to prove myself again. So every time that something comes up and you're having to lead or make a decision, you're thinking, I'm going to be found out. There's the victim or the avoider. There's the martyr, which many educators fall into. All right, I'm going to do this so that somebody else doesn't need to. Back into the pandemic, it was, I'm going to take all the pressure and all the stress so that my staff doesn't have to worry about it. There was a noble meaning behind it, but the majority of those martyr leaders got burnt out, resigned, or retired. And there's the worrier, always worrying about things. Yeah, but if we solve this, then what about the next thing that's coming along? We all fall into these mindsets. Sometimes we fall into all of them. Part of being an effective leader is understanding yourself and understanding some of the traps that you fall into. Because sometimes your actions or activities can actually stop others in your team from growing or taking agency or becoming empowered. So understanding yourself is key. The pleaser, worrying about others, feelings of resentment, low-grade anxiety, apprehension. The critic, the doubter, self-defeating, frustration, anger, stress. The prover, seeking that next goal or feeling the need to actually prove themselves again. So stress, adrenaline-fueled excitement. The victim, the avoider, may shut down options, that will never work, or they shift the blame. Hopelessness, anxiety, exasperation. The martyr, they ought to or should, so there's some resentment, irritation, apathy. And the worrier, feelings of anxiety and fear. We all fall into these. We're all human. So understanding yourself and what you fall into is key so that you know when you're falling into it and also how you can get out of that trap. I'm going to put them back up in a second so you can read them. But I want you to have a chat with your partner. This is the last time you do it. And I want you to see if you can work out which one of these you fall into most often. If you can find just one, that would be great. 5 minutes. Two more minutes. I'm going to ask you which one you fall into, so get ready to respond. 60 seconds. Okay, let's wrap this one up. What I'm going to ask you to do is to either stand up or raise your hand if this is the mind trap that you fall into. How many pleases? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, less than 10. How many critics or doubters? Okay, again, less than 10. How many provers? Okay, there's a few more. Looks like about 30. Victims, avoiders. We have one victim. Martyr. And a warrior. Okay, who fell into every single one? Most people. We all fall into each of those in different times, depending on the interaction or the place or the context. But what we'll also find is that there are certain mind traps that we'll fall into consistently because of our personality. Now, I don't want to end on a negative note and say these are all the negative mind traps you should be falling into or shouldn't be falling into. We're human. For us to understand what mind trap we fall into typically allows us to be more aware of it and then to respond. With each of these, there is a positive quality as well. We can think of these as mind traps because they will keep us annoyed, stressed, angry. But there are positive aspects to these. The pleaser, who is caring too much about what others think, is displaying empathy and care. The critic or the doubter is showing humility and discernment. The prover has ambition and drive. My sister falls into this. She's been very successful in art restoration and museum curation, and she always thinks when the next project comes up or the next role comes up, oh, I'm going to have to prove it again. They're going to find out that I'm a fraud. And we had a discussion about 10 years ago where I was telling her the fact that you keep on having to feel like you need to prove yourself is what drives you forward. If you felt content and that you were achieving something, you probably wouldn't change your role. You probably wouldn't grow. The victim, the avoider, is concerned about self-care, self-preservation, is weighing up the odds, the dangers. The martyr is taking responsibility off others. The warrior is conscientious. There are positive aspects to these. What we need to be doing as leaders, though, is understanding which mind trap we fall into typically. One of the ways to not allow it to be a mind trap is to focus on the positive aspects of it, not the negative aspects. So the self-talk for the prover isn't, oh my God, I'm going to have to prove myself again and they're going to find out that I'm a fraud. The prover is, okay, here is this next challenge. Let me see if I'm up to it. So one way to move ahead is to understand what you fall into. If anybody is attending the workshop Leading with Heart tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit more about this area, and we're going to talk about how you actually fall into these mind traps, and then we're going to touch briefly on how you start to get out. But understanding the positive side or the positive attributes of these characteristics is a starting point. So the uncommon sense of leadership here is that we think people want strong leaders. We think they want that superhero person that has all the answers, that has no emotion. But in fact, people thrive, they feel more connected, and they do better when the leaders are authentic, open, and self-aware. In a way, we're trying to remove this mask of leadership, which says, I leave my personality at the door, and we're saying, no, bring your personality in. Show your personality. You will build more relationships, you will develop more trust. People will see you as a person as opposed to a figurehead. Okay, we're going to wrap it up there. I want you to remember two things. One, I think that phrase that we mentioned earlier on is key, that many are still trying to lead in this era of uncertainty with an aura of certainty. You are allowed not to know everything. In fact, if you act as if you know everything, people are going to start to see you as a fraud, because there's no way that you can know everything. There's no way that you can know everything about the best way to implement AI. There's no way that you can know the best way to actually change or alter assessments in this current climate. So ask questions, show uncertainty. Uncertainty can be a super strength because it builds trust and builds relationships. Second thing is small steps. We're not assuming that people walk out of here or of this event and go back and all of a sudden are changed. Small steps. Take those conversations that were social or business and go down a level and see what the effect is. Start to talk more about your purpose of education with your colleagues. Take a role. Don't allow others or don't assume that others already know it. And start to work on understanding, not necessarily changing, but understanding yourself, your mind traps, and focus on the positives that come out of that as well. I want to thank you for your time. I believe we're about to launch into book signing, and then we have some networking. Is that correct, Ravi? Okay, wonderful. Before I end, they're my contact details. You have both my details at BTS Spark, but also my other personal page as well. We have been able to, if anyone is interested, we do have an office in Mumbai with about 30 coaches at BTS and BTS Spark, and we typically offer coaching journeys of 5 sessions that go through the different letters and learnings. So if anyone is interested, you have details there. There are also postcards on your tables as well. And we do also have a range. These are the coaches who are ready to help us on our Embracing Messy Leadership journeys in India. And finally, So after this, I was not the author of the Embracing Messy Leadership, but we do have copies of that for sale. I helped with the research behind it. I do have my own 2 books as well for sale, which I'm happy to sign, The Power of the Whole and Questioning Education. And I believe that Ravi is setting up a venue where that will take place. Okay? All right. Thank you very much.